So much of the offseason for the New England Patriots has been talk surrounding the wide receivers group. They draft N'Keal Harry in the first round, and they bring in Demaryius Thomas. But one guy we haven't talked about yet is Josh Gordon. I'm Sierra Goodwill here with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth. Guys, do we expect to see Josh Gordon on the field this year? And if so, what kind of impact can he make?
Well, I think the weird thing about it is, Sierra, is that Josh Gordon's not suspended yet. He's still sitting out there on the commissioner's exempt list.
Yeah.
There's some kind of, misinformation out there, I think, about what exactly happened when he decided to shut it down.
Is there misinformation, or do we just not know?
I think whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
I think at the time that it seemed like a suspension was imminent. We keep hearing a suspension is imminent, but meanwhile, here we are in May, and there's no suspension coming. So whether it's Josh Gordon pulling himself off the field or the league pulling Josh Gordon off the field, I'm not so sure anymore which one it was. But I think that ultimately his fit in the system and his fit in the scheme is still what it always was last year. But I think the interesting thing is, and I said this when they traded for him, and then when he decided to stop playing or got suspended, whatever way you want to call it, he is the most unreliable player maybe in the history of the NFL, and they have just gone out and they've added a bunch of big receivers. N'Keal Harry, Demaryius Thomas, a couple of the UDFAs they signed as well were bigger guys, kind of saying we see that Josh Gordon can work in this offense, and a guy that's built like Josh Gordon can work in this offense. We just don't know if it's actually going to be Josh Gordon.
Right.
Maybe it's N'Keal Harry. Maybe he's the new Josh Gordon.
And it's an interesting point that he's not yet suspended. I think it's coming. I don't think we see him on the field at the beginning of the year, but we heard at the Super Bowl, Roger Goodell's been talking to him. Roger Goodell has a relationship with this kid. He's trying to help him get better.
Yeah.
Tom Brady and the Patriots organization are trying to help him get better. Remember, Belichick told us after the suspension, walking away, whatever, that he wouldn't comment on the team's relationship with Josh Gordon, but there's clearly still been one. So I think all parties involved, the NFL, the Patriots, and Gordon himself, I think they all want to see Gordon back on the field at some point. The question is, when does it come this year to me? I don't think it's going to be in September. It's probably not going to be in October. But you look at maybe an 8-week suspension, that sort of thing, maybe even something like 10 or 12. I think there's a chance, if all goes well, that means if he can get himself cleaned up, if he can get himself back in football shape, because once he gets, once he recovers from the human element of it, he's got to get back in football shape too.
This is bigger than football, though.
Right, naturally.
Yeah,
But what I'm saying is,
ultimately
once you get past that point, and obviously we hope he gets past that point, you can't just jump right back out on the field.
Yeah.
He's going to have to get back in football shape. Then, yeah, I think that there is a chance that you could see him at the end of the year.
It's interesting because Bill Belichick is known for kind of reviving people's careers and things like that, but he's also not known for having people who are problemsome on
People
his
he can't
team.
count on.
People he can't count on. So that makes me think that they are seeing more in Josh Gordon. They believe that he is a good guy. He can be reliable. He obviously is going through something that you mentioned is bigger than football. But do you think that the Patriots organization are committed to Josh Gordon?
I think they're committed to Josh Gordon, the person. I don't think they want to leave him high and dry.
Right.
But if you take it back to when they made the trade right after the Jacksonville game, Tom Brady stood up at that podium after they got trounced by the Jaguars. Pretty good. One of the worst losses they've had since that 2014 Kansas City game.
Right.
And he said, we can't get open. I have nobody to throw the ball to. He didn't say that directly, but that's what he was saying. We all knew that, right? Everybody in the room was kind of like, he's saying that they don't have any receivers. The very next day, what do? They go out and they trade for Josh Gordon. It was a desperation move then, and I honestly think that, calling it anything besides a desperation move is just getting it wrong. But ultimately now they've kind of moved into a new phase of the wide receiver group where they have enough new faces that if it doesn't work out this time around, not all their eggs are in the Josh Gordon basket. Obviously, they ended up, winning the Super Bowl anyway, and none of it ended up mattering. So we can always, argue that side of it too. But at the time, that was Tom Brady made a specific statement at the end of that Jacksonville game saying we need more talent at the wide receiver position. The answer was Josh Gordon, at least for a little while.
This Foxboro report is brought to you by betonline.ag. Head to clnsmedia.com/win. Enter promo code CLNS50 for 50% cash back on your first deposit. Like you said, Evan, this team now has kind of moved into a new phase of wide receivers. So if Josh Gordon doesn't get a suspension or gets a suspension for part of the season and then is able to come back to this team, do they need him on the team?
I don't think they don't need him, but
they definitely don't need him.
Couldn't hurt
they
to have
didn't need
him
last year.
But it couldn't hurt to have him.
I mean,
right?
Couldn't hurt
Especially
to have
with,
him, no.
we talked about the receivers, but put him in a group as a pass catchers, right? Trying to make up for Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah, sure.
He's a guy that's going to be able to run some of those seam routes. If he can recapture what he was at times last year, he's a guy that's going to draw some double coverage. And we still don't know where Demaryius Thomas is at.
Yeah.
I think, you want to talk about not being able to count on Josh Gordon. That's fine. But I don't know how much you can count on Demaryius Thomas. Coming off his second torn Achilles, I know he's a quick healer, but it's a serious injury and a part of the body that's crucial for him to be able to play the game he wants to play. So do they need him? No. I like the group they have. But I do think that, they are a much better team with him on the field.
Well, I think the scheme, though, and I do think they're a better team with him on the field because of how much of a matchup nightmare he is for defenses. But after he kind of, went away last year, the scheme opened up a little bit more. They were able to do a little bit more.
Was that
because
him going away, or was that them having a stronger running game?
No, I think that what I'm saying is that their passing game became more multiple after Josh Gordon left because they really weren't. They were learning on the fly with Josh Gordon in terms of the scheme. We know how complex and how big the playbook here is in New England. They really had kind of were held back a little bit schematically of how much they could actually do with Josh Gordon on the field. A lot of that situational stuff, like remember at the end of the Pittsburgh game when they pulled Josh Gordon off the field and everybody's like, what are they doing?
Hail Mary.
Yeah, a lot of that situational stuff, he wasn't necessarily, in on those all the time because he was still learning some of the other things. So there were some of those little things, those little elements. They do not have the performance they had against Los Angeles Chargers in the same way that they do with Josh Gordon because they were able to really go and open up the scheme a whole lot more and do a whole lot more different types of things schematically with their receivers group that maybe he wasn't ready to do quite yet. So I think that there is that element to it. They're obviously a more talented and a more dangerous football team with Josh Gordon on the field, but they might be a little bit more complex and a little bit harder to defend without Josh Gordon, if that makes sense.
For more content regarding the questionable return of Josh Gordon and all other Patriots news, head to clnsmedia.com.